A cargo truck rolls toward a restricted quarantine checkpoint and is immediately stopped by workers who begin spraying it down with disinfectant. The driver asks what's happening, and one of them explains there's been a small incident in the biotech sector, but it's supposedly under control. The truck continues down the road, and as the driver reaches for his ringing phone, he suddenly hits something. He steps out and finds a deer lying there. After checking his vehicle and seeing no damage, he shrugs it off and drives away. Moments later, the animal twitches and rises again, with a terrifying look etched across his face. Elsewhere, Daniel Park sits in his office, speaking with a client about selling off certain shares. While scrolling through online news, he notices reports about a strange mass death of fish in a nearby reservoir. His assistant walks in, and Daniel immediately orders him to liquidate all stocks connected to that company. Later, he parks outside his home while arguing on the phone with his ex-wife about their daughter, Mina. It's Mina's birthday the next day, and she wants to visit her mother, but Daniel doesn't want her traveling alone. Inside, Daniel's mother greets him. He walks into Mina's room and finds her quietly talking to her mom, insisting she can make the trip by herself. When she notices him, she quickly hangs up. Daniel sits beside her and suggests waiting until he's less busy so he can take her himself. He hands her a birthday gift early. She opens it, only to realize it's the same item he had already given her before. When he asks what she really wants, she simply says she wants to see her mom. Mina tells him she'll go alone, so she doesn't interrupt his work. Later, Daniel speaks with his mother, who urges him to have an honest conversation with his ex when he eventually goes. He insists work is at a critical stage, but she reminds him that this is also a critical moment in Mina's life. Before leaving, she hands him a camera containing footage of Mina's recital he missed. Watching the recording, Daniel realizes how hurt his daughter feels. That night, he decides to take her to her mother himself. The next morning, while driving, Daniel tries to turn the recital into a lesson about life, but they're suddenly interrupted when an ambulance speeds past them. They pull over as a convoy rushes by. Mina notices ash-like particles drifting through the air, and in the distance, flames reflect faintly on the car window. At the train station, a high-speed train prepares for departure. The conductor gets into position as attendants move through the cars. A group of young baseball players settle into their seats, joking among themselves, while one teammate offers another a snack. Daniel and Mina board the train. He calls his office, saying he'll return before noon. Just as the train begins to move, a wounded young woman stumbles on board at the last second. As the train departs, Mina notices something disturbing, a man attacking a station worker on the platform. Inside the train, the injured woman reveals a bite wound on her leg. A businessman named Mr. Kong alerts a train attendant about a strange passenger who locked himself in the restroom and refuses to come out. Curious, Mina wanders toward the area. Inside, the man mutters that everyone is dead, but the attendant doesn't understand and tries to calm him down. Meanwhile, the bitten woman collapses in the aisle, unnoticed by most passengers. Mina attempts to use a restroom, but is stopped by a large man, Victor Han, who is guarding it for his pregnant wife, Lena. He directs Mina to another carriage. Soon after, a staff member discovers the injured woman convulsing violently and calls for help. At the same time, Daniel wakes from a nap and realizes Mina is missing. His assistant calls, warning that something serious is happening nationwide. Daniel hangs up and begins searching for his daughter. Around him, passengers watch alarming news reports showing chaos spreading across the country. Suddenly, the injured woman rises. But she's no longer human. She lunges at a staff member, attacking without hesitation. Within seconds, the infection spreads. Panic erupts as more passengers are bitten, turning almost instantly. Screams fill the train as order collapses into chaos. The baseball team is quickly overwhelmed as the outbreak spirals out of control. A senior attendant yells for everyone to move to the next carriage. Daniel forces his way through the terrified crowd, calling out for Mina. Meanwhile, Mina hides inside a restroom, trembling as distant screams echo through the train. Passengers rush past Daniel as he witnesses another staff member get attacked and transform within seconds. Then, Mina finds him. Relieved, he grabs her hand, and they run together as a wave of infected charges down the aisle. Nearby, Victor urges his pregnant wife to keep moving as the danger closes in. When a woman is suddenly attacked, Lena pleads for help. Victor steps in without hesitation, fighting off the infected. Daniel and Mina reach the next carriage and slam the door shut behind them. Victor traps an infected inside a restroom before rushing back to join the others. As more creatures pound against the doors, Victor and Lena barely make it inside, sealing the carriage just in time. Catching his breath, Daniel realizes something. The infected can't open doors. They rely on sight. Thinking quickly, Lena covers the window, blocking visibility. Outside, the creatures begin to calm, unable to detect movement. Then, an announcement echoes. Through the train, the next station will be skipped. Furious, Mr. Kong demands answers over the intercom, but the response remains unchanged. The order came from Central Control. Moments later, Daniel's phone rings again. It's his mother. She sounds terrified, urging him to stay safe and protect Mina. But mid-sentence, she suddenly goes quiet. Something is wrong. Daniel understands instantly, but hides the truth, forcing himself to stay strong for his daughter. As the train slows while passing another station, desperate survivors slam against the windows, begging to be let in, only to be dragged away and brutally attacked. Seconds later, a public broadcast confirms the worst. Violent outbreaks have erupted across multiple cities, and the number of casualties is rising rapidly. A government broadcast reports that multiple major districts have been sealed off. Passengers on the train begin checking their phones, watching clips online that show people being violently attacked. The announcement continues, stating that a nationwide state of emergency has been declared. Citizens are urged not to believe rumors, to remain calm, and to stay indoors. Despite the reassurance, footage of cities burning tells a different story. Inside the train, the survivors barricade the doors and move farther away from the infected cars. Mina tells her father that her mom's phone isn't going through. Daniel has her sit down while he tries calling again. Nearby, an elderly woman, Mrs. Lee, insists her sister, Mrs. Park, sit beside them, and Mina kindly gives up her own seat. Victor notices Daniel and his daughter approaching, and still holds a grudge over him shutting the door earlier. Daniel, in turn, scolds Mina for putting others before herself, telling her that in situations like this, survival has to come first. Soon, another announcement comes from the conductor, saying the train will stop at the next station, where military forces are supposedly waiting to secure the passengers. Daniel overhears Mr. Kong speaking on the phone, asking which cities are still safe. From what he hears, the station they're heading to doesn't seem to be one of them. He tells Mina to stay put and heads to another carriage to make a call. Victor chats with Mina, asking about her father. When she says he works in finance, Victor jokes that it basically makes him a leech. Mina awkwardly agrees, while Lena gently eases the tension by offering her some candy. She then guides Mina's hand to her belly and tells her to greet the baby. Mina smiles when she feels it kick. Meanwhile, Daniel calls a client he believes can help. He asks about the station they're approaching and learns that once they arrive, passengers will likely be quarantined. When Daniel mentions his daughter and asks for assistance, the man quietly advises him to avoid the main square and head to the east side instead, promising to alert his contacts. As Daniel returns, he notices a quiet, disheveled man lingering nearby, listening closely. Not long after, the train arrives at the station where the military is supposed to be waiting, but the place is eerily empty. Mr. Kong pushes his way out first, with the others following behind, including Daniel and Mina. The remaining baseball players step off as well, gripping their bats cautiously. One of the attendants leads the conductor to see the infected carriage, where Mr. Kong insists that Busan is one of the last safe cities. He demands they detach the infected cars, but it's not possible. The conductor agrees they should continue toward Busan but insists on gathering the remaining passengers first. Meanwhile, the group moves deeper into the deserted station. Daniel leads Mina toward a restricted area so they can head for the east exit. The homeless man follows them after overhearing Daniel's earlier call, hoping to escape with them. Mina wants to warn the others, but becomes upset when her father refuses. As the rest of the passengers descend an escalator, Victor begins to sense something is wrong. At the same time, a lone figure appears at the far end of the corridor where Daniel and Mina are standing. The homeless man runs toward him, and Daniel follows, telling Mina to stay put. Down below, the truth is revealed. The military personnel are already infected. They suddenly attack, and chaos erupts as the horde rushes the passengers. Victor reacts quickly, pulling Lena back up the stairs to escape. Daniel receives another call from his client, who says he can't reach his people anymore. At that moment, an infected soldier appears behind an officer in the hallway and attacks him. The homeless man slips as more infected swarm in and devour the officer. Daniel rushes back to Mina just as she's about to be attacked, but Victor steps in and manages to save her. Lena quickly grabs Mina, and they all start running together. The baseball players hold the train doors open, pulling them inside before slamming the doors shut. Behind them, Daniel struggles with an infected attacker, barely holding it back, until the homeless man rushes in to help him break free, then sprints toward the door. Victor spots him and immediately reopens it, holding it wide enough for Daniel to make it through. Together, they force the door shut, straining to keep the infected from breaking in. Nearby, Lena watches in horror as more passengers are overwhelmed by the swarm while trying to reach the train. Panic spreads as people scramble aboard from every entrance. Then suddenly, the horde smashes through the station windows, spilling violently onto the train. One creature crashes onto a baseball player, but its broken body leaves it unable to attack properly. Lena, Mina, and one of the elderly sisters move in the opposite direction, fleeing from another infected closing in behind them. Elsewhere, the other sister is pulled to safety by an attendant and the cheerleader, and they barely make it onto the train in time. The group is split. Lena, Mina, and several others rush into a different carriage, dragging the homeless man inside just before the doors are completely overrun. Within seconds, the infected surround the train. Mr. Kong pressures the staff, insisting they must leave immediately if they want any chance of survival. The cheerleader protests, desperate, saying her friends are still outside, but the attendant contacts the conductor and urges him to depart. Victor secures the door just as the infected begin cracking the glass. Outside, desperate survivors sprint toward the train as it begins to move. Just as they reach the stairs, 2 baseball players are dragged down and killed. The last remaining player freezes in terror, but Daniel snaps him out of it and pulls him forward, getting him safely onto the train. Victor lags. Victor falls slightly behind. Daniel reaches out to him, but instead of taking his hand, Victor grabs a nearby riot shield and baton. Without hesitation, he turns back and fights, using them to push back the incoming infected and cover their escape. Moments later, he manages to make it on board. At the front of the train, the conductor contacts Central Control, urgently asking if there's a safe route to Busan. The reply is uncertain, proceed as planned, but await further instructions. Meanwhile, Lena, Mina, and their group find themselves trapped between 2 carriages filled with infected. Realizing they're out of options, Lena spots a small restroom and signals for everyone to squeeze inside. One by one, they force their way in. They just manage to fit. But as Lena steps through the doorway, an infected suddenly lunges at her. The group slams the door shut at the last possible second, bracing themselves as the creatures crash against it from the outside, pounding relentlessly. More infected begin piling up outside. In another section of the train, passengers cover the glass doors for protection as the conductor announces they will proceed directly to Busan. The cheerleader receives a call from the last surviving baseball player. His voice breaks as he apologizes, saying he's the only one left. At the same time, Daniel tries calling Mina, only to suddenly hear Victor speaking to her through his phone. Mina explains they're trapped inside a restroom in car 13. The baseball player informs them that the rest of the group is stuck in car 15. The men quickly prepare to go rescue them. Victor lays out a plan. He'll take the lead, the boy will stay in the middle, and Daniel will cover the rear. They decide to move when the train enters a tunnel. As soon as they step out, the infected notice them and attack. Victor charges forward, taking them down with his bare hands while Daniel supports him from the side. The boy swings his bat, and together they push through like a single unit. In the next carriage, they're faced with a group of infected baseball players, causing the boy to freeze in fear. Victor shoves him back and continues fighting. Daniel grabs a bat and joins in, but the two are soon overwhelmed as the boy stands frozen. Suddenly, the train enters another tunnel, and the infected begin to act erratically. Daniel realizes something and makes noise with the bat, drawing the creatures away long enough for them to slip through. As soon as they exit the tunnel, the infected regain their senses and attack again. The group pauses between cars, catching their breath, when Daniel comes up with a new idea, using their phones as distractions when the train goes dark. They move into the next carriage during another tunnel. Daniel tosses Victor's phone to the back and calls it, causing the infected to swarm toward the sound while they quietly escape. They finally reach the restroom, where everyone reunites with relief. The baseball player finds another. restroom nearby, and during the next tunnel, he leads the others inside for safety. Daniel calculates the timing between tunnels, while the boy sends a message to his girlfriend in car 15. When the cheerleader receives it, she lights up with hope and tells the others they're coming. However, Mr. Kong immediately objects, arguing they could be infected. The other passengers begin to agree with him. She pleads with the attendant to help convince them, but he sides with Mr. Kong as well. When the train enters another tunnel, everyone leaves the restrooms, but now they must figure out how to cross safely. They begin crawling through the overhead luggage racks to avoid detection. Daniel distracts the infected, allowing the group to drop down and move into the next carriage. During the chaos, the homeless man stumbles, and Daniel goes back to help him. The two are left behind as the train exits the tunnel. Daniel counts down, preparing to run, but the homeless man accidentally crushes a Ken underfoot, drawing the infected toward them. They barely make it through the door, but Victor has to hold it shut as a body gets stuck in the frame. The baseball player calls out to his girlfriend in the next carriage, but the door is locked from the other side. The passengers in car 15 refuse to open it, even preventing her from explaining. Daniel rushes to help Victor, while the boy desperately tries to break through the door. In the struggle, Victor is bitten. At the same time, the door finally gives way, and the baseball player tries to enter. But Mr. Kong blocks him. As others attempt to intervene, the cheerleader and the girl fight from inside to open it. Lena moves toward her husband, but Victor stops her, telling her to stay back. He turns to Daniel, urging him to take her and leave, saying he's reaching his limit. Victor asks him to look after her. Daniel, shaken, apologizes. The door begins to collapse, forcing them to retreat. Victor holds the infected back, refusing to go. Down without a fight, buying the others time to escape. Daniel pulls Mina and Lena away, but fails to save Mrs. Lee in time. Once inside, he immediately confronts Mr. Kong, furious, and attacks him. Mr. Kong accuses Daniel of being infected, and the attendant orders them all into the vestibule. The passengers from car 15 demand they be thrown out. The homeless man steps out first. The cheerleader refuses to stay behind and joins the baseball player. Lena urges Mina to go as well, and Daniel follows. The others seal the door behind them, trapping them in the vestibule. Back inside, Mrs. Park sees her infected sister and, overwhelmed with grief, opens the door. The infected flood into the carriage, overwhelming the remaining passengers. Meanwhile, the conductor tries to contact control for updates on Busan but receives no response, only seeing flames in the distance. Daniel finally reassures Mina, promising to take her to her mother for her birthday. Later, his assistant calls again, saying Busan has the strongest defenses left, and reveals that the outbreak originated from one of their own companies. Suddenly, the train screeches to a halt due to a blockage on the tracks. The conductor announces he will search for another train to carry the survivors to Busan. Mr. Kong and the attendant have somehow survived the chaos. The conductor checks one train, only to find it filled with infected, so he continues searching. Daniel tells the others they must move and find another way forward. Eventually, the conductor finds an empty train and starts it up. Elsewhere, Mr. Kong traps himself in a restroom with the attendant. He tells the man to go first, only to shove him into the infected and escape. At the same time, a flaming vehicle crashes into the trains, splitting the survivors apart. The baseball player helps the cheerleader into a train, but as he tries to open the door, Mr. Kong arrives, sacrificing the girl and leaving him behind. The boy fights off an attacker and escapes, but the cheerleader begins to turn in his arms and then bites him. Meanwhile, Mina wakes Daniel. He, Lena, and the homeless man find themselves trapped beneath a derailed train car. Mr. Kong runs toward the moving train, and when the conductor tries to help him, he abandons him as well. The wreckage begins to collapse, but Daniel manages to find a narrow escape. As he turns to help the others, the gap suddenly caves in. The infected smash through the windows, and the homeless man holds them back, sacrificing himself so the others can escape. Daniel opens a path, and he, Lena, and Mina manage to get out, leaving the man behind. They run toward the moving train as a massive horde pours after them, climbing over each other in pursuit. They manage to board the train, but so do several infected, clinging to the exterior. Daniel fights them off, eventually knocking them loose. Inside, they search for the conductor but instead find Mr. Kong in the cabin, half transformed. He manages to unlock the door. Daniel realizes he's infected, and when the transformation completes, Mr. Kong attacks. Daniel fights him while Lena pulls him away. In the struggle, Mr. Kong bites Daniel. Knowing what's coming, Daniel chains himself for a moment, then throws Mr. Kong off the train. Realizing he's been infected, Daniel gets Lena and Mina into the cabin and explains how to operate the controls. He tells Mina to stay strong and reach Busan, where it's still safe. She refuses to let him go, but before he turns, he gently pulls away and steps outside, leaving her crying behind him. As the infection takes over, Daniel remembers the day Mina was born, then throws himself off the train. Later, Lena and Mina are forced to stop when another blockade appears. They leave the train and continue on foot through debris and bodies. Eventually, they enter a dark tunnel. On the other side, soldiers aim at them, unsure whether they're infected. An order is given to fire. At that moment, Mina begins singing the song from her recital. The soldiers hesitate, then realize survivors are approaching. Did you enjoy the story? Make sure you like this video and subscribe to the channel for more incredible stories. Also, check out our previous videos. You might find your next favorite story.